I'm Brad Pomerance on Charter Local Edition, coming to you from Palm Springs. We are at the California State Association of Counties Convention. We're joined by Adam Hill. He was just reelected to the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County. And I've been walking up and down the halls of this convention, and everyone is talking about Prop 64, the legalization of marijuana for recreational purposes. It was a stunning victory for the proponents. What's stunning to me, and I want to ask you, Prop 19 was on the ballot 6 years ago. It lost 47-53. This one 57-43. What happened 6 years, 10 points?
Yeah, those are good questions because, you know, it's a big social change, and I compare it to, it's not a perfect comparison, but if you look at gay marriage. You know, less than 10 years ago, the voters voted to ban it in the state, and now it's universally even you know, accepted at the Supreme Court level. So there's a point, I think, where a lot of people in the middle, so they're not advocates against or for something, but they just realize, like, we don't care. Yeah, we don't care. You know, so there's a lot of people who's like, what, this gay marriage thing doesn't bother us, and you know, that doesn't, fine, let people get married. And there was a lot of people who's like, yeah, you know, even people who aren't smokers or users of marijuana, you know, they know people who are, and they just figured it was time.
And what's so interesting is, on the ballot in 9 other states were versions of medical marijuana or marijuana legalization. They passed in 8. I mean, Massachusetts, or I think it was Maine, Nebraska, Nevada legalized it completely. Arkansas, Florida, and North Dakota legalized it for medical purposes. Arizona voted it down.
I think fundamentally, what we at least, we need more people to understand this, including law enforcement all the time, which is the drug war has been a terrible failure. It's been a disaster socially in this country. We've spent trillions. We have put a lot of black people into jail. We've gotten a lot of Mexicans killed in cartel wars. And we have done nothing to affect either the demand of it or the supply of it.
Well,
so why
the mass incarceration of black and brown, as they call it, has been a scourge on our society.
It's a disgrace. And I think enough people are at least somewhat aware of this now to realize that the approach of criminalizing drug use is a bad approach.
Well, do you feel as if that we move on to other drugs, cocaine?
No, you know, I think obviously marijuana is the obvious one because it's not as problematic. It's not, you know, though there are obviously people who think it is. It's not as it has some real medical uses, and people have been. If we can figure out a way to regulate it well and to tax it well, I think it's going to be a huge industry.
Let's talk about that. Because under Prop 64, there is a regulatory scheme and a taxing scheme. On the taxing side, the state of California can tax 15%. Local governments can also tax. And there are some local governments that put on the ballot with 64, if 64 passes XYZ. I don't think SLO County did that, or SLO Cities.
Grover Beach did.
Grover Beach, okay.
Yeah, which is in my district.
And so what did Grover Beach do?
They're working now with the consultant. They put a tax measure on there to add another tax for different industries, including, you know, for any of the sale industries.
But my question though is, look, I understand that the sale of marijuana, the cultivation of marijuana can be a revenue generator for governments. The challenge though becomes that if we start to tax it so much, we tax the state taxes, you have cultivation taxes, you have sales taxes, and all of a sudden you have so many taxes that it's cheaper to buy it from the local guy on the corner.
And I think that there's an understanding of where that sort of pain point might be in terms of where...
Is there though?
There are people, you know...
Are there economists at Cal Poly Pomona or Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, your former institution, that are looking at that?
Well, actually, you know, in California, because we have a generational history of marijuana growers and people who've been, you know, giving it out, selling it throughout the country for a long time, you know, under the radar. I think that there's a better understanding in California than anywhere. If you look at the Triangle counties where it had been traditionally grown.
Up north?
Right. Yeah, you know, places that people are familiar with, Humboldt and Mendocino, and I think that there's more experience with things than probably other states have had. And if you're from other states, California has this brand name almost attached to it that will probably at some point, you know, you can't export it until it is delisted from the federal one.
Let me ask you about grows, because look, San Luis Obispo County is an ag county, and Paso Robles, for example, has done very well with another drug, alcohol, arguably a drug. The wine industry is booming, and so I don't know much about the soil, but is the soil good and slow for marijuana, cannabis?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, from what we've heard from again, there's a whole consulting industry popping up now for the cannabis industry, which makes sense because there's a lot of money at stake.
Well, clearly.
The reason that they've traditionally grown in the other counties is because they were hard to get to, hard to reach, hard to make raids and all these other things.
Course.
If you can do it in better agricultural counties, that's where you'd want to do it. And a lot of it can, a lot of it's probably best done in greenhouses. It can be best, you can get, from what we understand, 5 grows a year in a greenhouse.
So what is SLO County doing on that front?
So we're in the midst of drafting our cultivation ordinance, and we're working with an outside consultant to make sure that we get it right. We don't want to be either too restrictive or too free with it, because there will be problems at first. I think that needs to be understood. I mean, it's a social change, and it's a new thing that it's not like growing strawberries, in the
or
sense
grapes,
that,
for example, which are for wine and they're not intoxicating when you pull it off the branch.
But the truth is that when you talk to growers, there's they're willing to play by the rules, and they have no issues with drafting good rules.
But what about,
they also don't think it's the security issue that sometimes people are jumping over fences to get into fields of
But
cannabis.
I understand that when the marijuana, the cannabis flower is blooming, the smell can be really pungent.
That's one of the issues,
so fortunately SLO is a county with a lot of land, so I presume you can have grows done in places where it's not near residents?
Right. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that you'd need to have a certain amount of distance for residential neighborhoods. And it's probably not only because of the odor, and I think they'll probably work on the odor. I mean, you're going to see much more research and testing both in ag schools and once the feds are able to... Cal
Poly SLO,
places, Fresno, places that have great ag schools that have also spent a lot of time switching over to viticulture and enology. I think your comparison to wine is a very legitimate comparison, because I don't think it'll be long, and I think it'll be less than 10 years before you see in some of our wine country tasting rooms that taste for cannabis and tasting rooms that taste for wine.
What about the sale of the marijuana?
Right.
We have medical marijuana clinics. I don't think you have any in SLO County. It's all delivery.
It is all delivery in SLO County.
So what are the thoughts in terms of brick and mortar for recreational marijuana?
Right. I think until the state guidelines come down in the beginning of 2018, it's still going to be dispensaries.
Okay.
But you may see, probably in Grover Beach, for instance, a few dispensaries open in advance of them.
Right, because they passed the taxing measure, as you said.
And because they seem to, the population seems to be ready for it. They overwhelmingly passed it, and they support the...
And what was so interesting about the population overwhelmingly passing it is that every coastal county voted in favor of 64, including SLO County, a pretty purple county.
Oh yeah, at the same level too, 57%.
Right, and in Southern California, only Imperial and Kern County voted it down. So this was a very strong mandate from the voters of California. Now we have a federal government who continues to list marijuana as a Schedule I drug. We have an incoming administration. We don't know what their views are. We know the Obama administration basically took a hands-off approach. On banking, they didn't do much, but are you concerned about the new administration on marijuana?
I think that I'm hoping that that common sense will continue to prevail, and I think in California, nobody should excuse or should confuse the vote with somehow there's this overwhelming desire for everybody to to use
get
marijuana.
stoned. Right.
I think that, and it goes back to what we were talking about in the drug war. I think there's a greater understanding in California that we have built one university to every 20 incarceration institutions, prisons, and jails, and that has led nowhere good. And whether you're talking about the governor talking about that, and you're talking about some initiatives that we've had on the ballot, including recently about early release and sentencing,
57.
People realize we've spent way too much money putting people in jail.
His name is Adam Hill, Supervisor in San Luis Obispo County. I'm Brad Pomerance at the CSAC Convention in Palm Springs, Charter Local Edition.